I wonder if I could ask Sarah, just quickly, going back to Pat's questions. I think Pat's explored very effectively, if I may say so, what the loss of the Court of Justice of the European Union will mean for individual workers in the United Kingdom. But I wanted to ask you about what the British government have said they intend to do in order to protect workers' rights. And they made some proposals earlier this year, which they describe as their proposals for enhancing workers' rights once the UK leaves the EU. And in particular, they've talked about having a statement of compatibility with legislation. And I believe the TUC have raised some concerns and some critiques of what the UK government are proposing. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so what was proposed, I think, back in March, is that when the government introduces primary legislation, that would be amending employment or a health and safety right that was derived from EU law, then when it brings forward that legislation, at second reading it would issue a statement of compatibility setting out whether the government believes that the new measure is a regression of rights or is fine in that sense. There are a number of problems with this. Obviously, a statement of compatibility, as anybody who knows the Human Rights Act statement of compatibility system can testify to, is not an objective statement. It is what the government wants people to think about a piece of legislation, and that would be the first problem. The second problem is that a huge number of changes that are made to employment rights aren't brought by primary legislation anyway, so it doesn't cover the whole range of mechanisms that would be used. There could no doubt be arguments around the edges as to which pieces of legislation, which rights actually require a statement to be made anyway. But in a sense, they're slightly technical concerns. Fundamentally, it relates to non-regression, but it isn't giving us that dynamic alignment that we want to go forward. It still doesn't account for all the other losses that Mr. McFadden was setting out in terms of enforcement. And again, this is something we've touched on in detail, but we do have concerns about protections for employment rights that are set out in domestic legislation, when at the moment we have an international system of protection. So a statement of compatibility system, in the current environment, even if it were passed by the members of Parliament sat in this room, might not survive very long under a new Parliament.